Are you hopeful that this plan by the Senate to review the Constitution is going to go through this time?
Well, I'm not too excited by the efforts of the National Assembly. Like my colleague just said, it will end up an exercise in futility. We have put the cart before the horse. It is not for the National Assembly to give Nigeria a constitution. It is the constitution that will give birth to the National Assembly. The job of the National Assembly is to make workaday laws for the peace, order, and good government of Nigeria. So it is the Constituent Assembly that will deliberate and fashion out a fundamental law for Nigeria. So quite sincerely, I think we got it wrong. I remember many years ago, I was on Sunrise with the leader of the APGA, and he said that the car has been panel beaten so many times that it's now battered. So what we need, he said, was a brand new car. So if we agree that the military decree that is masquerading as a constitution is worse than useless, then of course we have to go about replacing it with the basic law of Nigeria. I think we got it wrong again.
And now, if we could step back a bit, is the fact that what questions well, some call it Decree 24 of 1999, fail to answer for us as a nation? What questions are we looking forward to this constitution answering for us as Nigeria?
Well, we have to elaborate a true federalism. In other words, the constituent units that comprise Nigeria must be given the leeway and freedom to enact laws in respect of their affairs. We need devolution of powers. We have to decentralize. We have to reconfigure the federal setup that we are operating. A situation where the federal level has 62 items under its dominance, and you have a concurrent list of a few items and then a residual list. We have to rethink and refashion the constitutional arrangement so that we have what we call a true federalism. Registration of births and deaths should not be the business of Abuja. We should not be running to Abuja for every little thing. You remember what the previous Deputy Speaker in Senate, he said we are operating a feeding bottle federalism, that every month the constituent units have to run to Abuja to replenish their feeding bottle. Now that is a joke. We either have a federal setup or we don't. What we've been operating under the military constitution is a quasi-federal arrangement so that the constituent units don't have the freedom, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the power to legislate on matters that affect their constituents, that's the population. So that's why I thought it's good to discuss the necessity for a rethinking of our constitution. But having said that, it is not the National Assembly that should give us a new constitution.
Okay.
We, the people, or our representatives, formed into a constituent assembly, should discuss the modalities of living together. So that is the approach of those who are knowledgeable in these matters. It should not be a situation where the blind is leading the rest of us. We are getting about it wrongly. Right. We have examples of different federal governments to look at: the United States, Germany, Mexico, India, Australia, so many federations. So if you want to run a federal setup, then you must go about it well, okay? So that you don't end up with a caricature of a federal setup.
Professor, we have had this, we have tried, we have made these attempts, you know, one or two times before, and you are saying now that the approach that the Senate is going about it isn't, you know, exciting for you. But we have made attempts before. What was it that we didn't get right that ought to be corrected now so that this exercise can be meaningful?
Well, to reiterate, I said we need a constituent assembly. Constitution making is a matter for a constituent assembly, however comprised, either by election or by nomination. A small group of people to look at how we've gotten on with ourselves and fashion out a blueprint for cohabitation. I remember the late Bola Ige, God bless him, wherever he is, said there are only two questions that the Constituent Assembly should pose. One, do we want to live together? And two, how? Once we sorted that out, then we put the recommendations before a national referendum. And if 51% of the population agree on the modalities for cohabitation, then we have a new constitution which is not only valid, but is also legitimate. What we've been having, I'm talking of Decree 24 of 1979, is an illegitimate instrument. You remember the Patriots said one of the tragic flaws of that arrangement was that it told a lie against itself. Where did we people gather to discuss and agree to live together? We never had that. It was a product of a military diktat. What you had was the Abdul Salam Constitution. I believe 25 Nigerians were constituted to draft the 1999 Constitution, the Abdul Salam Constitution. I think Nigerians now have the right to enact to themselves the fundamental law that will regulate how they are going to live together. I mean, the infelicities of that constitution are well known. We will be wasting time recounting how unworkable a quasi-federal setup is for a country that has over 400 ethnic groups. And that's why we've been in the jam that we find ourselves. So I think we have to get it right, finally, by setting up a Constituent Assembly that will produce a draft constitution which will be voted on by the generality of Nigerians. That's how to get about it.
Okay.
In America, they had a Constituent Assembly, you know, the Congress of Philadelphia. And later it crystallized into the United States Constitution in 1787. So you must learn from the experience of others. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. How has it been done elsewhere? And then there's nothing wrong in copying good examples. In fact, Thomas Bohe once said that the customs house is yet to be built that could prevent the export of good examples. So I would suggest to countrymen, Nigerians, that we have to do it well and right. In order not, again, another 5 years down the line, we start discussing the necessity to amend the Constitution. The Constitution we have now has gone through a number of amendments. It's so laughable when we talk of the Constitution as amended. The American Constitution has gone through over 26 amendments, but you never heard them say the Constitution of the US as amended. So there will be an amending formula in the Constitution which could be revisited if and when necessary. But to give the impression that the Constitution is just another law which can be amended at will, I think it's making us a laughing stock before the rest of the world.